Sembla que, quan era adolescent, vostè s'encarregava de posar els discos de pasta en un gramòfon en un hotel que dirigien els seus pares a Zagreb i que vostè doblava la veu dels cantants d'aquests discos. Com va ser que paulatinament es va convertir en el gran intèrpret del piano que va acabar sent?
Well, gradually is a very good word. I started piano lessons at 6 because there was a piano at home, and my parents, when they were very young, got a few lessons, and they thought this part of the bourgeois education. But they were neither intellectuals nor aesthetically minded. They were loving parents, but apart from that, I had to find out things for myself. There was also the war, where over longer stretches of time I did not have a piano to work on. It was only after the war, when I was 15, that I could seriously start playing. And it was age 17 that I gave my first public recital, which decided my future. I thought that there would be some hope to make a career. Before that, I had 2 years of genius, doing everything: composing, playing, writing, and painting. And of all these things, I kept piano playing and writing. Writing has remained my second life.
M'agrada molt la seva idea que una partitura no es pot tocar solament amb sentiment i que l'intel·lecte hi té una part de gran importància. Vostè, que ha tocat molta música de Schubert i de Liszt, músics romàntics per excel·lència, deu haver hagut d'estudiar a fons les partitures per no caure en una interpretació purament sentimental. Expliqui'ns aquesta qüestió, si us plau.
Yes, fortunately, I do not have to prevent myself from being sentimental. There is no danger. But I love feeling emotion as much as I dislike sentimentality. The study of the score may show you which emotion is the right one. And we find it in the score. We don't put it into the score. We should find it there.
De tota manera, em sembla que estarà d'acord amb mi que hi ha versions, per exemple, que s'han sentit últimament dels nocturns de Chopin, que són excessivament meloses, que són excessivament sensibles, no? una mica massa ploraneres, quasi bé, i que un intèrpret com el que hem comentat abans, com Arthur Rubinstein, va tenir molt de compte en interpretar els nocturns de Chopin amb una precisió i amb una distància emocional molt gran, que em sembla que afavoreix la pròpia partitura.
Arthur Rubinstein was almost a classicist in playing Chopin, and I think there have always been those two types, the restrained player and the player that goes overboard. Now, looking at Chopin, among other piano composers, he was the exception. All the other great piano composers have written works for ensembles in the first place, or for the human voice, and also piano music. Whereas Chopin has mainly concentrated on the piano alone, so he must also have played the piano differently. If we listen to what Liszt wrote about him, it must have been a very peculiar and highly refined way of playing the piano. And for that matter, there had been 100 years of Chopin specialists who had the center of their repertory in this music with a few composers around. On the other hand, there was the player of the Central European repertory with a large bulk of pieces. When I was young, that was still the choice, and I chose The Central European
Està.
kind, yes.
Algun compositor per piano li ha fet algun concert perquè l'interpretés vostè? Perquè l'estrenés vostè?
Not really, no. I had some offers, but I did not accept them. But as you said, I'm extremely interested in new music. And when I say new music, I mean music that is new, that adds something to musical experience which has not been there before. Not completely new, of course, but going on from somewhere or combining something that has never been combined, or seeing the past into a new light, in a new light. I often went to concerts of contemporary music, and I recommended young pianists who came to me to play, for instance, the Ligeti Etudes.
No li sembla que els intèrprets actuals del piano es preocupen més de la tècnica que d'entendre una partitura, dialogar amb ella i extreure'n tot el que porta, sempre amagat entre les notes dels pentagrames? És a dir, no li sembla que molts intèrprets actuals es preocupen molt més de la tècnica que d'entendre? Vostè ha parlat abans de l'intel·lecte d'una partitura, la intel·lectualització d'una partitura. Com estem en aquest sentit? És a dir, no hi ha alguna cosa també de mercadotècnia, de certs fenòmens prodigiosos, de nois joves o noies que molt jovenets ja fan coses dificilíssimes a piano, i això a vegades passa al davant d'una interpretació refinada?
Well, it's true of some pianists, but as for dealing with the score, as I mentioned before, it should talk to you, not vice versa. We have to try to get the message from there patiently and not tell the composer what he should have done.
No el vull posar en puntes trets, senyor Brendel, però com que hi ha un fenomen bastant recent en el món de la interpretació pianística, només així es vol per sobre, digui'm, si té una gran admiració per la manera com interpreta el piano la música romàntica el senyor Lang Lang.
Well, I don't actually, as a colleague, like direct questions very much. But I certainly wish him well. He's young. He has to find out a few things for himself. Give him some time. And as for the performance of romantic music, I've heard him do very different ones. I also heard a completely boring B minor Chopin sonata, where he really tried to do nothing and let the music speak by itself, but it didn't speak.
Vostè és un dels més grans intèrprets al piano dels últims 50 anys, però apel·lo a la seva humilitat perquè em respongui aquestes preguntes una mica compromeses, no tant com l'anterior. Qui ha estat el millor intèrpret de les variacions Diabelli de Beethoven? Qui ha estat el millor tocant les variacions Goldberg de Bach? Qui és el millor en els nocturns de Chopin i en els anys de la peregrinatge de Liszt? Li agraden les versions de les sonates per a piano de Beethoven del pianista Solomon?
Well, I shall take a deep breath and
Comencem pel primer.
try to answer these questions. Let's start with the Diabelli variations. I have first to mention Arthur Schnabel, who was the first pianist to record this work and played it at a time when nobody else played it, and when it was totally unpopular, and when even good musicians thought this was a work that you may play through at home, but not in a concert hall. Now this has drastically changed. Now it is a work that young pianists are feverishly trying to do. I remember last year in the United States, there were 4 prominent pianists who all had the Diabelli variations on their programs. Having said this, I shall leave humility aside and say that I hope that one of my 4 recordings will show that I'm familiar with the piece. Now, Goldberg variations. in my young years, I heard Gustav Leonhardt playing it on the harpsichord, which I found convincing. And in the later years now, more recent years, I heard a number of performances by Andras Schiff, which impressed me. Of course, I'm very far from having heard all the recorded performances. I apologize if I'm missing something. Then with Chopin, the nocturnes, I don't have the answer. But if you would ask me about Chopin's preludes, 24 preludes, I have a very ready answer. It was Alfred Cortot, recording 1933-34. For me, one of the great wonders of piano playing.
Perdoni, senyor Brendel, vostè sap que Cortot va fer un trio amb poc casals.
Yes.
Ho sap perfectament,
Yes. Yeah, of course, yes. Oh, this was an amazing time, around 1930. You had this trio, you had the Busch and the Polish quartets, you had Berlin Philharmonic under Furtwängler with first desk players like Simon Goldberg, Piatigorsky and Feuermann. You had the Verein für musikalische Privataufführungen in Vienna. It's really, I wish I could have lived then for a year or two. About Liszt, the best performances of Liszt's poetic pieces that I have heard were by Wilhelm Kempff in the 1950s. There are Decca recordings from 1950 where he was at his best and where he also played the most wonderful performance of the first legend, Saint Francis of Assisi preaching to the birds, which gave me an idea of what Liszt playing is about, namely to forget the notes, to forget the virtuosity and turn it into completely into poetry. And suddenly there was the character of the saint with the greatest simplicity. And there were the birds fluttering around, mesmerized by what he had to say. So that's what Liszt playing is about for me. Then the last question was Solomon.
Beethoven, Sonata, Solomon.
Well, with all my respect, I must say that they have not impressed me as much as the best playing of Fischer, Kempff, and Schnabel.
You still prefer the Kempff version?
Some of them, yes.
Yes.
With those pianists, there was also, we have to make a choice. They were uneven, but the best of their playing is still on a level which I very rarely find today.
I see. And the leads of Lazar Berman.
I much admired Berman's recording of the at least etudes, the first set which he did as a very young man.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you. La música de cambra és considerada una de les millors agrupacions de músics per fer gran música i per aconseguir un bell acord entre tots els instrumentistes, 4 habitualment, o 5 o 6. Per què vostè, quan no ha tocat sol, ha preferit tocar peces amb orquestra abans que practicar la música de cambra, a part les sessions de música que fa amb el seu fill i els seus amics?
Well, when I lived in Vienna in the 50s and 60s, there was not really a very tempting partner to play with. There were very good players who went into the orchestras, but not soloists. I have not only played with my son, but I have made a tour with the Alban Berg Quartet, with works by Mozart. I've made a tour with Holliger and his colleagues in playing the Mozart and Beethoven quintets. And I made a record with Holliger that I still vividly remember of Schumann pieces, where he played various of Schumann's pieces on various oboes, even if they were not written for the oboes. So, having said this, my favorite way of playing chamber music was to play Mozart concertos with chamber orchestras. I did this throughout my life. And now in my old age, my favorite pastime, if it's a pastime, is to coach string quartets. I have done this already since a long time, coaching the very good quartets. And I'm still doing it occasionally. Now concertos. You couldn't be an important pianist skipping concertos with orchestra. There is a special pleasure in playing with an orchestra and noticing that they are not only behind you, but with you. And the concerto repertory is so wonderful, with the peak, in my opinion, as the Mozart concertos. But there are important concertos written up to our day.
Vostè ha declarat que hi ha una certa distància entre la música sacra i la música profana. I considera, o potser ho considera algú que vostè em citarà ara, em sembla que amb molt d'encert, que ni la música religiosa de Schubert és pròpiament religiosa, ni sembla que ho siguin els rèquiems de Mozart o el de Verdi. Però no li sembla que tota la música és d'arrels religioses, un art molt més religiosa o espiritual, la música, que posem per cas la literatura o la pintura?
Yes, instead of religious or spiritual, I would choose the word mysterious. I think music is more mysterious as the other arts because it is not as directly connected to reality. I'm a great admirer of religious music, although I'm not religious myself. I have survived well without the comforts of religion. And I'm waiting. If my ears would still be all right, I would be waiting for the next performance of Bach's B minor Mass.
Però, vaja, diguem això, el rèquiem de Verdi li sembla que és tan misteriós com ho poden ser altres partitures que són més espirituals o més religioses. No dic el de Mozart, dic el de...
Well, I don't understand your arguing, I must say. I don't find religious something that is confined to something hushed.
Yeah.
It has a very wide scope. I love Haydn's masses, for instance, which have been considered not to be ecclesiastical by some of his contemporaries. I think they are some of his most wonderful works. What happened is that in the aesthetics of the time, tragedy was up there and comedy was down there. And there were, in musical aesthetics, certain devices which you had to use for the one or the other. Now Haydn mixed it up and used devices from one thing in the other thing. He also introduced humor into absolute music, and that means that your expectations when you hear the music are confounded, they are not met. So this is not only in his humorous music, but also in the masses, that there was new material that he introduced to them. And for me, this is perfectly all right. I mean, I think to be religious is not only being on your knees praying, but also praising.
Però en aquest sentit sí que està d'acord que la música té una dimensió misteriosa més gran que la literatura o que la pintura, que sí?
Yes, one could say that. Yes.
Com vostè sap molt bé, Montaigne, el seu essè, és un autor que vostè admira, afirma que filosofar és aprendre a morir. No m'estic sent. Dedicar-se a la música és també una bella manera d'oferir sentit a la vida i trobar-se preparat i satisfet davant la mort inevitable.
Yes, certainly it is. I mean, I do not waste my time with the general question, what is the meaning of life? But for me personally, music, literature, the arts give meaning and purpose to my life, and so does love. Yeah.
Llavors agraeixo molt, senyor Brendel, l'enorme paciència i generositat que ha mostrat al llarg d'aquesta conversació. Jo mateix, els organitzadors, la casa i tot el públic present, li donem les gràcies més entusiastes i li desitgem molta felicitat i molts anys de vida. Moltes gràcies.